Long words are easy to read if they're already divided into syllables. Before we get started, there are a few terms you need to know. The letters A, E, I, O, and U are vowels. The letter Y is a vowel most of the time. The consonants are all the other letters, and the letter Y when it's used as the sound of Y. A syllable is a unit of speech with a vowel sound, and an accented syllable is emphasized by saying it louder and with a clear vowel sound. Sometimes it's called a stressed syllable. If you've ever looked in the dictionary and seen this upside down backwards E, that is what we call a schwa. And the schwa sound is a muffled sound that usually comes out sounding like a short U sound of or sometimes a short I sound of I. The schwa sound can replace the vowel sound in any unaccented vowel in a word. And finally, an unstressed syllable is a syllable that isn't accented. Why does it matter if you understand what accented or stressed means? The word accent itself is a clue. Sometimes it can be a little difficult to understand a native speaker from another country. For example, in the United States, we call cell phones mobile phones, where the first syllable is accented with a clear O sound. British English says mobile phones, where there is a long I sound in the second syllable. That long I sound schwas in American English and completely disappears. Another word with a difference between American and British English is the word progress, which in American English has a short O sound, whereas the British pronounce it progress with a clear long O sound. Also, we have the word frustrate in American English with a short U sound. My understanding is that the British say frustrate, where the second syllable is accented or said a little louder. So why does knowing how to accent the syllables correctly matter? Well, if you've ever made a call to a call center in another country, you've experienced how hard it can be to understand someone who's not a native speaker of English. Even if the person can say most English sounds correctly, if they're accenting the wrong syllables, you might have a very hard time understanding what the person is saying. Fortunately for new readers, 200 years ago, Noah Webster, yes, he's the one the dictionary is named after, went through the English language and divided thousands of words into syllables and put them in an order to help students learn to read. You can find this if you look up Webster Speller. There are many editions, and I've gone through and picked out many of the words to put in this program. We're going to start with words from Table 4. In these words, the bolder syllable is the accented one. So you want to say that a little louder. In all of these words on this page, we have 2-syllable words where the first syllable will be accented. In these words right here, the Y at the end is going to have a long E sound. So we have happy, not happy, happy, tally, penny, jolly, folly, puppy, chilly. Remember, CH says ch, and muddy. What you might notice is that in all of these syllables, we have a short vowel sound. So when you're looking at a word that is already divided into syllables, if the vowel is in the middle of the syllable, try the short sound. All of these words end in ER, which has the sound of Again, these words all have a first syllable that is accented. So it's going to be rammer, not rammer. Manner, not manner. Ladder, stammer, latter, scatter, pepper. CH says ch most of the time. Chatter, shatter, letter. I'd like to point out that while I am pronouncing these double T's with very clear sounds, in American English, most of the time they sound more like ladder, chatter, shatter, and letter. In other words, Americans tend to substitute a D sound for the T sound. Here are more words ending in better, dinner, differ, sinner, litter, glitter. Note in these words, I'm doing it with the standard American pronunciation, which I do automatically, where the T sounds more like a D. Bitter, glimmer, robber, fodder, offer, drummer, gunner, gutter, mutter. Note that these syllables with a vowel in the middle or at the beginning of the syllable have the short sound. Batter, flatter, tanner, tattler, smuggler. Here are more two-syllable words that are accented on the first syllable. Just like the previous page, the words have all been divided between the double consonants. So right here, we divide between the two T's, the two P's, the two F's, the two L's, and so on. Once again, Noah Webster did the work for us. So we have flutter, upper, utter, suffer. In all of these words, the O in the final syllable is going to schwa, which means it'll generally have a short U sound of but it might come out sounding like a short I sound of it. Again, the schwa is a muffled sound that can take the place of any unaccented vowel. So all these first syllables are accented, which means they will have their clear, short sounds. But these O's are going to schwa. So we have gallop with a clear, short A, gammon, common, and summon. In all of these words, the vowel in our accented syllable has its clear, short sound, while the O schwas. In these words, our EL at the end is going to schwa. Remember that CH says ch most of the time. So we have channel. So it's not channel with a clear, short E sound. It's channel, flannel, vessel, funnel, kennel. In these words right here, we don't have a schwa. We have the normal ER sound here. Pattern, wedding, NG says ng, vellum, SH says sh, rubbish, shilling. Here we have more words. In all of these words, the first syllable is accented, so the vowel in the middle is going to have its clear short sound except for OR, which is going to have or. And our last syllable is not accented. In these words, the E is going to schwa. In these words, the A will schwa. Sudden, sullen, gusset, gullet, plummet. In accented syllables, AR says R. In unaccented syllables, it could schwa, like at the end of these words. So we have pillar. So it's not pillar, it's pillar. Dollar, not dollar, dollar. So when these ARs schwa, it sounds more like an ER. Ballad. OR says or, so we have horrid. In this word, the C is going to say S. It's soft sound. It always does this when followed by an EI or a Y. This E is not going to make this I have its long sound because our first syllable is accented. So since this syllable is accented, this I becomes a short I. Again, this E just makes the C say S. It does not make the I have its long sound. So we have the word office, not office, office. In all of these words, we have vowel teams where we split between the vowels. The words in this column have two syllables where the first is accented and the second is not. When a syllable ending in a vowel is accented, we try the vowel's long sound. In these unaccented syllables, the A is going to schwa. So we have dial with a clear long I and the A schwas. Trial, pliant. This G will say J most of the time, but not always. A G has its soft sound of J when followed by an EI or a Y. Giant, liar. In all of these words, the first syllable is accented, so we try the vowel's long sound first, and the second syllable is not accented, so our E will schwa. Quiet, diet, poet, gruel, fluent. In these words, the O will schwa, and the accented syllable will have its long sound. Lion, riot, ruin, truant, fuel, cruel. I would like to point out that in much of the US, these words are pronounced as one syllable. So you will hear both fuel and fuel, cruel and cruel. These words don't have a double consonant and they don't have a vowel team where the vowels get split. Instead, they have been divided after a vowel before a single consonant. After a vowel, before a single consonant. Again, after a vowel, before a single consonant. When the syllable is accented, like all of these first syllables, and it ends in a vowel, we try the vowel's long sound. Baker, sober, paper, wafer, taper. This G is going to have its soft sound of J because of the E. Wager, raker, maker, fever. This C will have its soft sound of S because of the I. Cider, viper, spider, trader, rider, ruler. Again, in all of these words, they were divided after a vowel before a single consonant. And since the first syllable was accented, we used the long sound for the syllable. Here are some more words like that. These words in the first two columns end in a Y, where the Y has the long E sound. Crazy, duty, lazy, lady, holy, very, gravy. SH says sh, shady, glory, duty. In these words, the first syllable is accented, so we use the long sound, and the AL sound is going to schwa, so it's not going to be a clear AL sound, it's going to be ul. Fatal, again, not fatal, it's fatal. Final, vital, vocal, frugal, total, and legal. Here are some more words where the first syllable is accented, so we will use the long sound, and the second syllable is not accented, so the vowel will schwa. Idle, pilot, tutor. Notice that the OR, when not accented, sounds more like like an ER. Student, silent, moment, student, prudent, over, pagan, vacant, human, stupid, focus. In this word, this E will have its clear, short E sound and will not schwa. Precept. Let's learn how to tackle reading long words. There are some things you need to know before we go on. A, E, I, O, and U are all vowels. Y is a vowel when it uses its sounds of I, E, or I. The consonants are the rest of the letters, and Y when it has its sound of Y. A syllable is any unit of speech with a vowel sound. Pick a long word and put your hand right below your chin. The number of times your hand drops will tell you how many syllables there are. For example, if we say the word computer, our hand drops 3 times, or we could clap it out. Computer. 3 syllables. An accented syllable is any syllable that we emphasize by saying it a little louder and it has a clear vowel sound. Sometimes we call accented syllables stressed syllables. A schwa is this upside down backwards E-looking thing that you may have seen in a dictionary. The schwa represents a muffled sound, which usually sounds like a short U sound of or sometimes a short I sound of I. The schwa can replace any vowel sound in any words where the syllable is not accented. And an unstressed syllable is one that is not accented. Why does understanding accented syllables matter? Well, let's look at this word. There are 2 common ways that this is said. In some places, people say Caribbean, where the rib is accented, and the first A and the last A schwa, or sound like Listen carefully. Caribbean. Notice both these A's schwa. In other areas, people say Caribbean. In both of these pronunciations, the final AN is pronounced un. But in the second pronunciation, we have a clear long A sound, and the third syllable is accented. Listen again. Caribbean versus Caribbean. Here's a word that refers to a type of nut that is similar to a walnut. In some places, people say pecan, where the E schwas, hear the pecan, and the A has the broad A sound of In other parts of the United States, people say pecan. One final example is this word. In most of the U.S., people say this word as adult, where the A schwas and the second syllable is accented. Listen again, adult. There are some people that pronounce it adult, where the first syllable is accented, and instead of having a schwa sound, it's a short A. Listen again, adult, adult. Why does all this matter? Well, when you're reading a word, and you've tried pronouncing the vowel sounds one way, if it doesn't give you a word you recognize, try a different sound and see if you recognize that. There are two more quick things we need to review before we go on. An open syllable ends in a vowel that will have its long sound if it's accented. Right here we have two open syllables. They end in vowels, so we try the long sound, bay. And when a syllable ending in Y is accented, we try a long I sound, by. So we have bay and by. Closed syllables have a consonant after the vowel, and the vowel has the short sound. They can either have the vowel in the middle or at the beginning, like in bat and at. Let's practice with some open and closed syllables before we move on to reading words divided into syllables. In this row, all our syllables end with a vowel, so we will try the vowel's long sound, remembering that the Y will have a long I sound. So we have bay, bee, by, bow, bew, and by. Remember that long U has two sounds, U and oo, and which one we use depends on the letter that comes before it. In this row, we have the vowels in the middle of the syllable, so they are closed and we use the short sound. A Y in the middle of a syllable will have a short I. So we have bat, bet, bit, bot, but, and bit. This is not actually a real word, but you can still pronounce it. In this row, we have open syllables, so we are going to use the long vowel sound. Day, dee, die, do, and die. Notice that this uses the U sound, bew, and this one uses the oo sound of long U, do. In this row, there's a consonant after each vowel, so we will use the vowel short sound. And again, in this made-up syllable, the Y is going to have a short I sound. Dad, den, did, dot, dust, dit. When you have the letter C, remember that when it's followed by an E, I, or a Y, it will always have its S sound, except for the word soccer. So we have K, C, psi, co, Q, psi. Let's try that again. K, C, psi, co, Q, psi. In this row, our vowels are all followed by consonants, so we try the short sound. And we remember that CH says ch, and Y in the middle of the syllable will have a short I sound. So we have cat, sell, cinch, cot, cut, cyst. A G, when followed by an E, I, or a Y, usually has its soft sound of J, but does not have to. So a C followed by an E, I, or a Y will always have its soft sound of S, except for the word soccer, or a few other foreign words. And a G will most of the time, but not always. So let's read the three syllables with the red letters, first with our soft sound of J, because it's the most common, and then with the hard sound of G. So we have gay, G, gee, jai, guy, go, gu, jai, guy. In this row, we have closed syllables because there are consonants after our vowels. So we will use the short sounds. And again, the Y will have the short I. So we have gas, gel, get, gin, gig, got, gut, gym. Let's read some words from Webster's Speller Table 5. In all of these words, we have prefixes, and prefixes and suffixes are rarely accented in English words. So all of these words are two syllables, and the accent will be on the second syllable. So that means we are going to say it a little louder and more clearly. So it's not disband, it's disband. Remember, a double S always says S. So we have dismiss, dissent, distinct, distrust, distract. Did you notice that all of these are closed syllables? So they all have their short vowel sounds? Remember that UR says so we have disturb. And here we have the root word taste, where even though the E is 3 letters from the A still has a long sound. Distaste. In these 3 words, our final syllable uses the silent E, making the vowel 2 letters before it have its long sound. And this E will make the C have its soft sound of S. So we have dislike, disrobe, displace. In all of these words, we have the prefix D. Most of the time when we say the words, it schwas into a short I sound, Like I said before, most vowels that schwa usually take on a short U sound, but in these words it sounds more like a short I. If people wanted to emphasize the word, they might clearly say the long E, like, I am going to decide to do it. But most of the time when people are speaking quickly, these long E sounds disappear and sound more like a short I because the first syllable is not accented and the second one is. Notice that in all of these words, we have a silent E making the vowel 2 letters before it have its long sound. And the C, when followed by an I, is going to have its soft sound of S. Decide, declare, deduce, define, degrade, denote, depute, derive. Right here we have a word ending in Y in an accented syllable. In most English words, Y at the end of a word has a long E sound. The time when it has a long I sound is when the syllable is accented. So right here we have defy. This syllable phi is accented, so the Y has a long I sound. Let's practice some more 2-syllable words where the second syllable is accented. In all of these words, in the first 2 columns, we have a prefix of com or con. Since prefixes are rarely accented in English, these O's are going to tend to schwa and sound more like a short U rather than a clear ah sound. So it's not going to sound like compute, it's going to sound more like compute, like there is a short U. Complete, consume, confine. Here we have an accented syllable ending in a Y, so we use the long I sound again, comply. Here's a long O, control. Here we have im and in as our first syllable. They are closed syllables because they have consonants after the vowel. And the second syllable in all of these words will be accented. Impend. Notice again that these syllables are closed, so we use the short vowel sound. Impend, implant, impress, imprint, incur, UR says indent, infect, infest, inflict, instill, instruct, and invest. Let's try a few 3-syllable words where the first syllable will be accented and the letter A will schwa rather than having a clear long A sound in an open syllable or a clear short A sound in a closed syllable. Our accented syllables will have their long vowel sounds. Diadem. Did you notice we don't say di-a-dem, but di-a-dem? The A schwas instead of having a short sound or a long sound. Dialect. These Y's are not in accented syllables, so they are going to have the long E sound. Notary, primacy, vacancy, vagrancy, bigamy, adamant. I want you to stop and divide these 5 words into syllables and try sounding them out. You're going to divide the words between the double consonants. And remember that since these words have the first syllable accented, the Y at the end is going to have a long E sound. And the 2 G's with a Y in both of these words mean that the G will have its hard G sound of G. All right, here's how we split them. We split between the double consonants. Right here, we notice that these are all closed syllables with a vowel in the middle, so the vowel will be short. These syllables end in a Y, but it's not an accented syllable, so it will have the long E sound. Lobby, hobby, jiffy, laggy, saggy. Let's try it with these 5 words. I want you to divide between the 2 consonants. The first syllable in each word will be accented. The second syllable will not, and these unaccented syllables may schwa. All right, did you divide between the N and the V? We have a closed syllable, so we have a short vowel sound, anvil. You could say it very clearly as anvil, but this is one of those words where the unaccented syllable tends to schwa, and the short I tends to turn to a short U, anvil. We divide between the 2 consonants. We have a closed syllable. All of these are closed syllables, so they use their short sound. Bandit. This is a word where this syllable still clearly has the short I. The same here, antic. And this word also clearly has a short I, fabric. In this word, our second syllable will schwa. So instead of coffin, it tends to sound more like coffin. But in both of these words, if you said it with a clear short I, anvil and coffin, people would still understand you. So it's not a problem. Could you do me a favor? If you've watched this far, you obviously liked the video, so please share it with a friend. Let's practice reading longer words by dividing them into syllables. If a syllable ends in a vowel and it's accented, the vowel will have its long sound. We call this an open syllable. Nay, ni, nigh, no, new, new, and nigh. The long U has two sounds, U and oo. The U sound is the one you should try first, but it's actually very difficult to say after most sounds. So right here, we could say new, but that's hard to say. So we switch to the oo sound. So when you see the syllable, try the long U sound of you first. And if it's difficult to say, switch to the oo. So this would be new. Y at the end of an accented syllable has a long I sound. That's why this is nigh. Let's practice with these. Bay, bee, buy, bow, bew, boo. So here, bew is easy to say, so we could do that. And buy. K, C followed by an E, I, or Y has its soft sound of S. So C, sigh, co, Q. Here, it's easy to use the U sound. And sigh. Let's do the C again. K, C, sigh, co, Q, sigh. A closed syllable is any syllable that starts with a vowel or has a vowel in the middle. Closed syllables usually have their short sound. So an, in, on, un. Man, men, min, mon, mun. Y in the middle of a syllable will have the short I sound, min. Ab, cab. Remember here, this C will have its soft sound of S because of the I. Sin, in, ip, and lip. You might notice that some of these are words, but most of them are not. When we want to make a long word easier to read, we divide it into syllables. The easiest rule to remember is if you see a double consonant, split between the two consonants that are the same. So we will split between the B's, the D's, the F's, the L's, and the M's. In all of these words, our first syllable is accented. What that means is that the last syllable is not accented. These syllables all end in Y. Y would have the long I sound if it was accented, but it's not. You might remember that most of the time at the end of a word, Y has a long E sound, and it will in all of these words because the first syllable is accented. So we have cubby with a short U. All of these syllables here are closed with a vowel in the middle, so they will have the short vowel sound. Cubby, Patty, Puffy, Nellie, it's a name so it has a capital letter, and Rummy. I want you to try. Find the double consonant, split the word between it, and then look at the closed syllable, which has a vowel in the middle, and give it the short sound. Here we split between the double M, the N's, the S's, the T's, and the N's. These syllables are all closed syllables with vowels in the middle, so the vowels get their short sound. These two words have a Y at the end in a syllable that is not accented, so the Y has a long E sound. And we remember that this ER says So we have tummy, ninny, gossip, latter, punnet. These are all real words. Don't worry about if you don't know what they mean. The next rule is to divide between two consonants. So in all of these words, we have two consonants in the middle of the word together, and we are going to split between them. All of these syllables are closed because the vowel is either in the middle or the beginning, so the vowel will have its short sound, unless it's connected to a letter such as R that changes the sound. We remember that AR says R and UR says and C followed by an EI or Y has its soft sound of S. So we have ardent, basket, burden, cancel, and casket. I want you to try these words. Find the two consonants, split between them. Here we have candid. C followed by an I is going to have a soft sound of S. An IR says so circus. Citrus. Filter. ER says IR says flirty. Notice again, the Y has the long E sound because it's in an unaccented syllable at the end of the word. Did you notice in these two words it was not a clear circus, citrus? The short U sound may have sounded muffled and more like a short I. In unaccented syllables, the vowel sounds often change to what we call a schwa, which is a muffled sound that can sound like a short U or a short I. The accented syllables will have clear vowel sounds. The unaccented syllables may not. We will talk about the schwa more later in this lesson. In these words, the second syllable is accented. So the second syllable will have the clear vowel sound. We are splitting between the two consonants. Here, 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 and here. We remember OR says or, E, and this C will have its soft sound. So we have enlist. Notice we don't say enlist. That would have the first syllable accented. We say enlist, where the second syllable is emphasized and spoken a little bit louder. Import, indeed, incite, invite. I want you to try these words. Split between the two consonants and make sure when you say the word you accent the second syllable. We split right here, here, and so on. These first syllables all start with a vowel, so they are closed and have their short sound. AI says A, this C is going to have its soft sound of S, and the CH says Ch. Intend, infect, obtain, excite, enrich. Another rule is to find the prefixes and divide between the prefix and the root word. Right here, we're going to use these three prefixes, miss, re, and un. So in these words, we are going to split after miss, after un, and after re. Then we follow the rules we've used. Miss and un are both closed syllables with vowels in the middle or at the beginning with a short sound. And notice that re is an open syllable. It ends in a vowel with its long sound. And we read the second syllables like we normally would. The C has its soft sound. And right here, this I and this O will have their long sounds because IND at the end of a word usually has a long I sound. And OLD at the end of a root usually has a long O sound. So here we have misplace. Notice place is emphasized more than miss because in English we rarely accent prefixes or suffixes. Misrule, unbind, untold, recline. Right here, I want you to find the prefixes and divide after the prefixes, keeping in mind that at the end of a root, OLD has a long O sound and IND has a long I sound. Examples of OLD at the end of a root with a long O sound are like the words old, mold, and told. Mind, kind, wind. Note that this can also be the word wind. Did you split after un and after re? So we have unfold, unkind, relate, remind, revere. You also divide before a suffix. In these words, we have the suffix ing, so we're going to find the ing and split before it. So here we have singing. Notice the first syllable is accented because most suffixes in English do not get accented. So we don't say sing-ing, it's singing, acting, inning, pinning, winning. You might wonder, why is the N with the suffix here? When we have a syllable with a vowel and then one consonant before another suffix that starts with a vowel, if we want to keep the short vowel sound, we double the consonant. You'll understand more about that later when we get to another rule. But for now, remember, if you have a word where you have a doubled consonant and then the ing, you split between the doubled consonant. Otherwise, you split after the root before the ing. I want you to try with these words. If you have a root plus ing with no spelling changes, just split before the ing. If you have a root and then a double consonant before an ing, keep one of the doubled letters with the ing. Here we go. We split between the double ends. Here we have a root, no spelling changes, so we just split here. Here we have a root where we had to double the D, so we split here. Right here we didn't have to change the spelling, so we split before the ing, and here as well. We remember our closed syllables have their short vowel sound, unless there's some other rule, such as the vowel with an R for Here, this is going to use the second sound of O-O, the sound, and SH says sh. So we have gunning, booking, bidding, curling, and dashing. Now let's say instead of having 2 consonants, you have 3 or 4 of them together. Where do you split them? Well, you want to keep blends together and look for compound words. So right here, I see C, K, and B together. Well, the C and K together make one sound, so they stay together. So I will split between the K and the B. Here we have an S and a T, so we will split there between those. So here we have blockbuster, blockbuster. Closed syllables with vowels in the middle, so try the short sound. Here I see a C, K, and a P. Well, C and K together make one sound, so we're going to split between the K and the P. This is actually a compound word because we have the word check. OI says oi, so we have the word point, checkpoint. Let's look at this one. I see N and T, so we will split there. In is actually also a prefix. Here I see an R and an N and an S and an H. So I've got 4 letters, but S and H definitely need to stay together because they say sh. So the R and the N will stay together as a blend at the end of this root, and the S and the H will stay here. So here we have the prefix in, ER says SH says sh. So we have internship, internship. Let's look right here. We have GSH. Well, S and H have to stay together because they make one sound. So let's split here. Flagship. Once again, that's a compound word. So that's another thing we could have looked for. We could have looked at this, said, oh, I see flag, I see ship. Let's split right there. Let's look at this one. Oh, I see the word short. OR says or, and I see the word cut. So we'll split right here. But let's say you didn't recognize that. Well, I have 3 consonants together. So 2 of them will stay together and one will be by itself. R and T are common together at the end of a word, but I don't ever really see a word with T and C together at the beginning or the end. So I will split right here. I want you to try these on your own. Look for the compound words, which is a word made of 2 other words. And if you don't see any, look at the groups of 3 and 4 consonants and see which ones need to stay together. Okay, T and H will stay together because they make one sound. T and H in this word use the first sound of f, and OR says or. And we remember AW says ah, so this is hawthorn. Oh, right here I see a compound word. I see foot and hold, so foothold. Notice the long O. Right here, I see 4 consonants, so T and H together make one sound, so they have to stay together. And D and R are often together at the beginning of words, so let's split right here. Withdrew. Remember that EW has a long U sound. Let's look right here. I see X, C, and H. Well, C and H stay together because they make one sound, so we will split right here. We also notice that X is a prefix. And remember that A-N-G-E together say ainge. So we have exchange. Another rule is that when you have a word where you have a vowel followed by one consonant, you split after the vowel before the single consonant. But don't do this at the end of a word where there's a silent E. So we are going to split after all these A's because all of these A's are followed by single consonants. So we split right here. Now, these A's are at the end of a syllable. So the first sound you should try is the long sound because they are open syllables. And open syllables end in a vowel, and we try the long sound first. But most of the time when you have a word starting with the letter A, the A is going to schwa. What's a schwa? Well, if you've ever looked in the dictionary and seen this upside down looking E, that's a schwa. It's actually the most common vowel sound in the English language, but for some reason, most schools don't teach about it. So, how do you pronounce the schwa? In most words, especially when it's replacing the letter A, it will sound like a short U. In some words, it sounds more like a short I. So whenever you hear me say that a sound will schwa, try the short U sound. That will work probably 3/4 of the time, and the rest of the time, try the short I sound. For words starting with the letter A, it will usually sound like a short U. In all of these words, the second syllable will be accented. So we have alike, not a-like, alike. You might say it a-like if you were really trying to emphasize it, but most of the time it will be alike, alone, amidst, amend, abase. Notice that these two words have closed syllables with a vowel in the middle, so it uses its short sound. I want you to try on these words. Split after the vowel, before the single consonant, and remember that the A at the beginning of the word is going to schwa. Adore, aback, acute, adult, O says in this word, afoot. Did you remember to accent the second syllable? It's not adore, it's adore. It's not aback, it's aback. Could you do me a favor? If you've watched this far, you obviously like the video, so please share it with a friend. Even reading 15-letter words is easy if you know how to divide them into syllables. Before we actually divide any words, you need to understand what the words open syllables and closed syllables mean. Open syllables have a vowel at the end, and if the syllable is accented, the vowel will have its long sound. Closed syllables have a vowel at the beginning or in the middle. So right here in this column and this column, we have open syllables that end in vowels. So we will try the vowel's long sound first. In these other columns, we have vowels at the beginning or in the middle. So we use the short sound. So, me, my. When Y is at the end of an open syllable, try the long I sound. Unless the syllable is at the end of the word, in which case it will usually be a long E. Am, it, in, pin, pan, man, low, key, pew, ip, og, ub, lun, vic, pim. Y in the middle of a syllable will have a short I sound. You may have noticed that these are nonsense syllables. The point of this is to show you that even if you don't know what the word means, or if it's not a real word, you can still read it. Before we learn any new rules, let's review this rule. Divide between any doubled consonant. So right here, we're going to divide between the M's, the N's, the G's, and the T's. Syllables with a vowel in the middle will usually have their short sound. The first syllable in all of these words is closed with a vowel in the middle, so we try the short sound. These two syllables end in the letter A. A at the end of a word is not going to have a long A sound. Most of the time, an A at the end of the word will schwa and take on a muffled short U sound of Y at the end of a word will usually have a long E sound. And right here, the double G means that we will have a hard G sound of G, even though usually a G before a Y says J. So here we have comma, gamma. Notice these aren't may, these are ma with the schwad A. Nanny, where the Y has the long E, soggy, and putty. The next rule to review is to divide between two consonants. So we have two consonants here, and we're going to split. So divide between these two, here we have the doubled, right here and right here. EA usually says E, and ER says er. These syllables are all closed because they start with a vowel or have a vowel in the middle. So we will try the vowel's short sound. Admire, alpine, appeal, banter, basket. Our new rule is to divide after a vowel before a single consonant. Here we have a vowel followed by one consonant, so we split here, down this way. Notice that all of these syllables are open syllables because they end in vowels. For open syllables, we try the vowel's long sound first. Remember that OW has two sounds, O and OW. We will use the long O sound. And C followed by an E has its soft sound of S. So we have bagel with a long A sound. Begat, below, biceps, caper. You try it with these words. Divide after the vowel before the single consonant. We split here. Remember, C before an E, I, or Y has its soft sound of S. These are open syllables that end in a vowel, so we will try the vowel's long sound first. Cater, cider. We will try the long I sound here. Cyber, decal, elect. On all of these words, we're going to divide after the vowel before the single consonant, just like we did. An open syllable of A at the beginning of a word rarely has a long sound. It usually schwas. The schwa is this upside down E that you may have seen in the dictionary. It's a muffled sound that usually sounds like a short U or sometimes a short I. When an A schwas, it tends to sound like a short U, both at the beginning of a word and at the end of a word, like comma that we did on a previous screen. So in all of these words, rather than having a clear long A sound, we are going to schwa them, and it's going to sound more like All of these words have the second syllable accented. That means the second syllable is emphasized and has clear vowel sounds. The other rule we need to consider on these words is if you have a suffix such as meant, divide the word before the suffix. So the rules we use on these words: divide after a vowel before a single consonant. Right here we have a silent E, so this stays together. And divide before the suffix meant. So we have atone. Notice it's not a tone, it's atone. Amend, atonement, amendment, abase. I'd like you to try that with these words. Divide after a vowel before a single consonant and divide before a suffix. We divided after the A for all of these. Remember, the double E says E, and in this word, OO says abasement, agree, agreement, adult, afoot. Now you might wonder, how do I know which syllable is accented? If you listen, we say abasement, not abasement. Agreement, not agreement. Our next rule is to divide after prefixes. In all of these words, we have the prefix in or im, so we are going to split after the prefix. So after im and after in. These syllables are all closed. They start with a vowel, so we use the vowel short sound. Remember that C followed by an I will have its soft sound of S. So we have imbrue, UE has the long U sound. Impale, incite, inflame, intrude. Did you notice that in all of these words, the second syllable is accented? We don't say impale, we say impale. We don't say incite, we say incite. You try with these words. Divide after the prefix re. We've divided after re. Remember that C followed by an E, I, or Y will have its soft sound of S. So we have rebate, rebuke, reduce, recite. Do you remember how I said usually at the end of a word the Y has the long E sound? That's because it's usually in a syllable that is not accented. In this word, the syllable is accented, which means it's an open syllable and would try the long I sound. So it's rely. We're going to practice some words where we use multiple rules. So right here, we've divided after the prefix re and before the prefix shun. And when you have a word that ends in shun, the syllable before it will usually be the accented one. Right here, this syllable has a vowel in the middle, so we try the short sound, retention. Right here, we've divided between two consonants and before shun. This is an open syllable and it's accented, so try the long sound, sensation. Divide between two consonants. Before the suffix shun, salvation. After the prefix pro, or you could also use the rule after a vowel before a single consonant and before the suffix shun. This is the accented syllable before shun, so try the long sound. Probation. After a vowel before a single consonant here and here, and before the suffix shun. These are open syllables, so we try the long sound first. Isolation. Isolation. Let's practice on words using multiple rules. We want to divide between two consonants, after prefixes, before suffixes, and after a vowel before one consonant. Right here we have the prefix in all of these words, and the suffix shun. Here we have a vowel in the middle of a syllable, so it's closed, and we use the short sound in both of these words. Inception, induction. Here we have an open syllable with a vowel at the end, so we try the vowel's long sound first. Inflation. Vowel is in the middle, try the short sound. Infection, intention. Let's say that you couldn't remember the prefix in. You can still divide between two consonants here, 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 and here. Here we have three consonants in a row. So you have to split between them, but how do you decide whether to split between the N and the F or the F and the L? Well, keep the two together that you see commonly in words. These are called blends. We can think of many words that start with FL, like flag or flame. Can you think of many words that start or end with N and F? Probably not. So keep the F and the L together and split here. All right, try on these words. Look for the prefixes in and re and the suffix shun. We've divided after our prefixes in and re and before our suffix shun. In these four words, we have the vowel in the middle, so they are closed syllables, and we use the short sound. And here, ER says insertion, invention, reception, reduction, rejection. Now, what do you do if you have 3 or 4 consonants together and you can't decide where to split them? You want to look for blends, combinations of letters that you commonly see at the start or the end of words. So right here we have C, C, and L together. So we could use the rule divide between the two consonants. Or you could say we see C and L together at the beginning of a word, but we don't see C and C together at the beginning or the end of a word. So we split here. AI says A, so we have acclaimed. Here we have C, T, and R. T and R are very common together. C and T sometimes come at the end of a word, but T and R are far more common at the beginning of a word, so we split here. Actress. Now, here we have T, W, so that's easy. We split here. But here we have T, H, S, T. Well, this is easier. T and H together have one sound of F or Th. And S and T are a common blend. Many words start with that. In fact, we have the word standing right here that we can see. So we have notwithstanding. Here we have a long word. We see the prefix in, so we split there. Here we have R, C, and H. Well, C and H have to stay together because they're two letters that make one sound. So we split here. And here we have the suffix able. I know it's 2 syllables, but I've kept it together because it's one suffix. But in the dictionary, you will see it divided into 2 syllables. I'd also like to point out that while this is the word able by itself with a clear long A sound, as a suffix, this A tends to schwa and sound more like ubble or ibble, where the vowel sound becomes muffled. So we have interchangeable. Right here, we have the prefix trans. If you didn't know that was a prefix, let's see, we have N, S, and F. Well, many words could end in N and S, but I can't think of any words that end or start with S and F together, so we will split right here. Divide between the 2 consonants here, and before the suffix shun here. OR says or. Transformation. Did you notice that this was an open syllable? So we try the long sound. Right here we have MP and R together. M and P occur at the end of some words together, but P and R occur at the beginning of many words, so we're going to keep those two together and split here. You might also recognize that com is a prefix. Next, we divide after a vowel, before a single consonant, and before the suffix shun. If you've forgotten about the suffix shun, make sure to watch my video Latin suffixes TI, CI, and SI to spell sh. So here and here are closed syllables, so we try the short sound. Here's an open syllable, so we try the long vowel sound. Comprehension. Right here we have 3 vowels in a row. We want to split between the double P's. So we split here, after a vowel, before a single consonant here, and before the suffix shun here. This syllable and this syllable are closed, so we try the short sound. Here we have an open syllable, so we try the long sound. Apprehension. Right here we have M, P, and R together, just like we did up here. So we divide between the M and the P. Right here we have another S right before the suffix shun. This S is going to be silent. We're not going to say press shun. This S sound will just disappear. Compression. Here we have the prefix trans, so we split after that and before the suffix shun. Just like the word above, this S sound is going to disappear. So we have transmission. Right here we have 3 consonants in a row. We split between the double P's. So we have suppression, where once again, this S sound disappears because of the sh sound. Let's say you've divided after a vowel before a single consonant and you don't recognize the word. Right here, we have an open syllable, so we would try the long sound first. And we remember that this C is going to have its soft sound of S. So we would try balance. I don't recognize that word. So what do? Well, just change where you divide. Divide after the next consonant and change this vowel to a short sound. Balance. Oh, I recognize that. Balance. Let's try this word. First we divide here. Select. I don't recognize that. So I try dividing here instead. Select. Let's try this word. Sedan. I don't recognize that. So let's split here instead. Sedan. Finally, this word. Using the rules we've learned so far, we would have anecdotal. I don't recognize that, so let's split after the N instead of before. Then we have anecdotal. That's very close. One thing I need to point out is that the end of a word, AL, usually schwas and sounds more like ul. So let's try it with a schwa. Anecdotal. I would like to point out that the root of this word is anecdote. For that reason, the dictionary has it divided into syllables this way, where this looks like it would be a closed syllable with a short O. So dividing it this way is to help us read it. In fact, all of the rules in this program are for reading. The dictionary may divide them differently because the dictionary divides the words based on suffixes, prefixes, and how the root is actually pronounced. I want you to try these words now. First, divide after a vowel before a single consonant and then see if it gives you a word you recognize. Benefit. I don't recognize that, so let's split after the E instead. Benefit. That sounds closer to a word, so let's try switching this long E to a short E. Benefit. This C will have its soft sound of S. Ceramic. I don't recognize that, so let's split here instead. ER says ceramic. I recognize that. Credit. I don't recognize that, so let's split after the D. Credit. Remember that this C will have its soft sound, and this AL will schwa. Decimal. I don't recognize that, so let's try splitting after the C. Decimal. That sounds closer to a word, so let's switch this long I to a short I. Decimal. Divide. I don't recognize that. Divide. Ah, now we have a word. So as you can see, dividing after a vowel before a single consonant gives us open syllables where we try the vowel's long sound first. If that doesn't give us a word we recognize, then we try splitting after the consonant and using the short sound instead to see if that gives us a word we recognize. Let's practice a few more words. Try dividing these words after a vowel before a single consonant. See if it gives you a word you recognize. If it doesn't, try dividing after that consonant instead of before it. OR at the end of a longer word usually says instead of a clear or sound. Janitor. I don't recognize that, so let's try here. After the N. Janitor. That almost sounds like a word, so let's try the short sound here instead. Janitor. There we go, the janitor, the person who cleans your building. Locator. Locator. That's a word. Remember, QU together says qua. Equator. That's a word. Monitor. That doesn't give us a word we recognize, so try splitting after the N. Monitor. Let's try with the short sound now. Monitor. Oh, monitor. There we go. Detector. Detector. That's a real word, so we'll leave it like that. If you found this video useful, please do me a favor and share it on Facebook, X, or WhatsApp. Do you ever see long words that end in any one of these suffixes and you freeze up and don't know how to read them? Watch this video to get better at reading these long words. Before we start dividing these words into syllables, you need to know what the terms open syllable and closed syllable mean. An open syllable ends in a vowel. When you see one of these syllables, try the vowel's long sound first. If that doesn't give you a word you recognize, then you try the short sound or a muffled sound we call a schwa. A schwa is the upside down E that you may have seen in a dictionary, and it usually sounds like a short U sound of but sometimes a short I sound of I. A closed syllable has a vowel at the beginning or in the middle, and in a closed syllable you try the short sound first. Over here we have a quick review of the syllable division rules we've covered in other videos. In this word, we're going to use this rule: divide after a vowel before a consonant. Right here we have two vowels that together make one sound, so they stay together and we divide here before the consonant. You could also use the rule divide before suffixes, and we have the suffix right here. So we split here. AU says ah. Both of these suffixes are pronounced shus. You could see my video about Latin suffixes for more practice with those as well. So we have the word cautious. Right here we want to divide between two consonants and after a vowel before another consonant or before the suffix. This syllable has a vowel in the middle, which means it's closed, so we try the vowel's short sound. This is an open syllable with a vowel at the end, so we try the long sound first. Fictitious. I don't recognize that word, so now we will switch from the long sound to the short sound. Fictitious. That's a word, so we keep that. Fictitious. T and R are a blend, which means they are letters that like to stay together, so we split here after the vowel before the blend, after a vowel before a single consonant or before a suffix. This is an open syllable, so we would normally try the vowel's long sound first. We also want to try the vowel's long sound first here because this is also an open syllable. Atrocious. Now this doesn't sound quite right, but it's very close. One thing you need to remember is that most English words that start with an open syllable of A will have the A schwa and take on an sound. So rather than pronouncing this atrocious, we pronounce it atrocious. Here we've divided after the prefix pre, or you could use the rule after a vowel before a single consonant, or the rule before a suffix. So we split here. This is an open syllable, so we try the long sound first. Precious. That doesn't sound right, so now we switch to a short E sound. Precious. Right here we want to divide between two consonants, and the same thing here. Infectious. Infectious. Try with these words. Look for the two suffixes shus and shus. We want to divide after a vowel before a single consonant here and before the suffix shus here. Pretentious. Pretentious. After a vowel before a single consonant here. E and R together say so they stay together. If you don't remember that, you could take a look and see that we have three consonants in a row, R, S, and T. S and T are a blend, which means they occur at the beginning or at the end of a word frequently, but R and S don't occur together nearly as often. So when you have 3 or 4 consonants in a row, keep the ones that occur together more often together. So we will split here. Then we want to split before our suffix. Superstitious. That doesn't sound quite right. So let's switch this long I to a short I. Superstitious. Right here we want to divide after a vowel before a single consonant or before the suffix. This is an open syllable, so we try the long sound first. Vicious. I don't recognize that, so let's switch to the short sound. Vicious. In this word we want to divide before the suffix. Gracious. Here we divide between 2 consonants and before the suffix. These are closed syllables, so we try the short sound. Infectious. This suffix is pronounced eous. Note that it has 2 syllables. We divide after a vowel before a single consonant here and here. And although this is one whole suffix, we're still going to divide after this vowel before this suffix, because OUS is also a suffix. When you have the letter I before the letter O or U or A, the I usually takes a long E sound. That's why this is pronounced eous. These 2 syllables are open, so we try the long sound first. Hilarious. That almost sounds like a word, so let's start with by changing this vowel to short. Hilarious. Hilarious. Here we want to divide after the prefix in, or between these 2 consonants, after a vowel before a single consonant here, and after an I before an A, O, or U. This G will have its soft sound of J because of the E. Ingenious. Ingenious. Note that in this word, it tends to be pronounced more like 3 syllables because this I sometimes, instead of a clear E sound, will have a sound more like a Y of yus. Ingenious. Here we divide after the prefix pre, or after a vowel before a single consonant, after a vowel before a single consonant, and after an I before an A, O, or U. Here we have 2 open syllables, so we try the long sound first. When we divide after an I before an A, O, or U, we try a long E sound. Precarious. Precarious. Here we have the prefix re, or we could divide after a vowel before a single consonant, divide between the doubled consonant, and divide between an I and an O. Rebellious. Just like this word up here, ingenious tends to sound more like 3 syllables, with the I taking on almost the sound of a Y, the same thing happens here. Rebellious quickly turns into sounding like rebellious. Here we divide between 2 consonants, after a vowel before a single consonant, and between an I and an O. Victorious. Let's say that a little faster. Victorious. This suffix is pronounced jus. It's 1 syllable. We don't divide between the I and the O because the I is here to make the G have its soft sound of j. We want to divide between the 2 consonants here and before the suffix. Contagious. G and I are a blend. They often occur together at the beginning of words, so we want to keep them together, and we will divide after the vowel before the blend, and before the suffix. Egregious. Here we will divide after the vowel before the blend, and before the suffix. Prestigious. That doesn't sound right. I'd like to point out that some people pronounce this word with a short I, while others pronounce it with a long E. So you can say either prestigious or prestigious. Here we want to divide after a vowel before a single consonant and before the suffix. Religious. That doesn't sound right, so let's switch from a long I to a short I. Religious. Although this is the word age, when it's used as a suffix, the A schwas, and it sounds more like idge. So here we divide after a vowel before a single consonant. Damage. That doesn't sound right, so let's switch from a long A to a short A. Damage. Divide after a vowel before a single consonant. Dosage. Here we divide after a vowel before a single consonant. Forage. The same with this word. Manage. That doesn't sound right, so we switch from a long A to a short A. Manage. Savage. That doesn't sound right, so we switch from a long A to a short A. Savage. This suffix is also pronounced jus. Right here we have the root gorge. English words don't end in the letter J. So if you have the j sound at the end of a word, it's spelled with a G and an E. So this is one syllable and we do not divide here. So here we have our root gorge and we add the suffix OUS, which is pronounced us, and all together we get gorgeous. Right here we have the root of courage. OU usually says ow, but in this word, when combined with the R, it says So we're going to add the suffix us, and now O and U together have one sound, so we divide after that, and we divide before our suffix. Courageous, courageous. Here we have our root advantage. We add our suffix us. We divide between two consonants here, and before our suffix. Advantageous, advantageous. Here we have the word outrage with the root of rage. Note the long A sound here. In these ones we had edge, courage, advantage. Here it has a clear long A sound because the root of rage has a long A sound. We add our suffix. Now we divide between the two consonants, and before our suffix, outrageous. If you found this useful, please share it on Facebook, X, or WhatsApp. Let's use our syllable division rules to read some 10-letter words. Right here, looking at this word, I noticed the suffix "ly," so we will put it by itself. Then I noticed the suffix "al," and together these say "ali," so I have that separate. I also noticed the prefix ab, but let's say you didn't know that prefix. We can use the rule divide between two consonants here and here. So here we have our word divided into consonants. We remember that OR says or, and AL, when part of a suffix, sounds more like ul rather than a clear al sound. Abnormally, abnormally. Here I'm going to divide between two consonants, and here before the suffix ist. AR says R. This double O is either going to say oo or We will use the oo sound. Cartoonist, cartoonist. Divide between the doubled consonant here and before the suffix shun here. Collection. Here we want to divide after a vowel before a single consonant here and here. Also, I noticed the suffix ment and the suffix ed. This syllable ends in a vowel, so we try the vowel's long sound first. Documented. I don't recognize that, so let's switch this long O to a short O and see if we recognize it. Documented. Right here, I notice the suffix ment, so we put it by itself. And right here, the prefix N, or you could divide between the two consonants. Right here, we have our root, and I notice this root is roll with a long O sound. Enrollment, enrollment. Right here again, I notice the suffix ly, so I will divide it. These two vowels together make the sound ah, so I will split after them, or you could use the rule divide before the suffix shus. Cautiously, cautiously. Note that this TI says sh. If you would like to learn more about that, see my video about Latin suffixes. Right here, I notice the prefix in, so I split that off. I divide between two consonants here or before the suffix shus again. Infectious, infectious. Right here, I notice the suffix shus again, so I split that off. And right here, I divide between the two consonants. Fictitious. Oh, I don't recognize that, so let's switch this long I to a short I. Fictitious. Divide between the double consonants here and split between the two consonants here, or you could use the rule before the suffix shul. Essential, essential. Split between the two consonants here, and we're going to divide before the suffix shul again. So now we just have this part in the middle. We want to divide after a vowel before a single consonant. So this syllable, we will try the long vowel sound first. Consequential. That doesn't sound quite right, so we will switch from a long vowel to a short vowel. Consequential, consequential. Right here, I notice the suffix shus, so we will split that off. and we will divide between the two consonants here. Suspicious. I don't recognize that, so we switch the long I to the short I. Suspicious. Right here, I noticed the suffix shus again, so we will split here and divide between these two consonants. A and U together say auspicious. I don't recognize that, so we switch from the long to the short I. Auspicious. Right here, we want to divide between two consonants, and here we want to divide after a vowel before a single consonant, and we want to divide after the letter I before the letters A, O, or U. Or you could also use the rule to divide before the suffix, and here we have the suffix us. Although OU usually says ow, when it's part of this suffix, it tends to schwa and sound like a muffled so this suffix is us. This Y is in the middle of a syllable, so we will use the short I sound. An I before an A, O, or U usually has a long E sound. Mysterious, mysterious. In the next word, we will divide between two consonants, after a vowel before a single consonant, and after the letter I before the letter O. Or, again, we have the suffix us. Victorious, victorious. Did you notice that this I had a long E sound again? Here we have the prefix pre, so we split after that. Here we want to divide before the suffix li, so we're just left with this part in the middle. I have an I before an O, so we're going to split there. Since this I is before an O, we will try the long E sound. Previously, previously. If you found this useful, please share it on Face, X, and WhatsApp. We're going to use all our syllable division rules to read some 15-letter words. Remember that these rules are for reading purposes. The dictionary divides words based on how they're actually pronounced. So first we're going to split between the double consonant. Right here we have 3 consonants in a row, so we want to keep the blends together. P and L occur together at the beginning of words, so we will keep them together and split here. Here we have 3 more consonants in a row, but S and H together make one sound, so they must stay together, so we split here. When we have a syllable starting with a vowel or with a vowel in the middle, we try the vowel short sound first. And if a syllable has a vowel at the end, we try the vowel's long sound first. One other thing to remember is that longer English words that start with the letter A usually have the A schwa, where it takes on a muffled short U sound. So rather than being a clear ack sound, this is much more likely to be more like uck. Accomplishments. Accomplishments. Let's look at our next word. Divide between 2 consonants. After a vowel before a single consonant here and here. Most blends are 2 letters, but this blend has 3 letters. Just think of a word like string, and you can see that S, T, and R occur together frequently. And here we divide after a vowel before a single consonant, or you can use the rule divide before the suffix. Remember that this is the suffix shun. So these 3 syllables end in a vowel, so we will try the vowel's long sound first. If that doesn't give us a word we recognize, we will switch 1 syllable at a time from the long sound to the short sound. Administrations. I don't recognize that, so let's start here and switch from a long I to a short I. Administrations. Still not a word, so let's switch from a long I to a short I here. Administrations. Oh, I recognize that. Right here, I'd like to point out that this long word has the root no in it. Remember that when K and N occur together at the beginning of a root, the K is silent. And this OW uses the long O sound. So we're going to divide between the 2 consonants here. We're going to keep the root together here. And then we're going to divide before the suffix ment. The D, G, and E together have the sound of J. English roots do not end in the letter J, so if you want to use the J sound after a short vowel, you use D, G, and E together. Why not just use G, E? Well, if you didn't have this D here, this silent E would be 2 letters away from this E and give it its long sound. So the D is here to protect the short sound. In other words, the D is here to keep the silent E too far away from this E to give it its long sound. So this will be a short E sound. Acknowledgement.
Well, that doesn't sound quite right. So let's switch from the long O sound of OW to the OW sound. Acknowledgement. That almost sounds like a word. Let's say it slightly differently. Acknowledgement. There we go. All right, right here we have 4 consonants in a row, so we have to decide where to split. Well, T and H together make one sound of th or th, so they need to stay together. T, H, and R occur together more often at the beginning of words that I can think of off the top of my head than N, T, and H. So let's keep these 3 together and split here. We want to divide after a vowel before a single consonant. Here, 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 here. This G is going to have its soft sound of J because of the I. And we want to remember that in longer words, when we have a suffix that ends in AL, the A usually schwas and sounds more like ul rather than a clear L sound. Anthropological. That doesn't sound quite right. So let's start switching from long vowels to short vowels in these open syllables, one syllable at a time, until we find a word we recognize. Anthropological. That sounds closer, so let's switch this long O to a short O. Anthropological. Well, one thing I noticed is I have right here the word logical, so let's switch this long O to a short O. Anthropological. There we go. Okay, right here I have this word, and I notice the root depress in it. We're going to look for prefixes and suffixes. Here I see a prefix, anti. I've put it in blue because it's one prefix, even though it's 2 syllables. If you actually wanted to divide it into syllables like the dictionary, you would split here. But I kept it together because our purpose is for reading, not for writing. This prefix can be pronounced either with a long E or a long I. So you will hear both anti and anti in American English. Now I want to divide between 2 consonants and between the double consonants. And right here, just like most other long words, this A in the last syllable is likely to schwa rather than be a clear short A sound. Antidepressants or antidepressants. If you found this useful, please share it on Facebook, X, or WhatsApp.
Let's practice reading more words with our syllable division rules. So here's our first word. I noticed right here the root character, but let's say you didn't know that word. So we start with dividing after a vowel before a single consonant, here. Right here we have 2 consonants in a row, so we split there. Then we divide after a vowel before a single consonant, here. Split between these 2 consonants here. Most of the time CH says ch, but in some words, like this one, it uses its sound of k. In other words, it uses the sound of sh. When a syllable ends in a vowel, we try the vowel's long sound first. When we have a vowel in the middle or at the beginning of a syllable, we try the short sound first. Characteristics. Well, I don't recognize that word. So what do we do when we don't recognize the word? We start by going through and changing some of the long vowels to short vowels to see if that works. Right here, I noticed that this A is followed by an R. When you have A, R plus another consonant, it says R. But when you have A and R followed by a vowel, the A usually has the long A sound, care. So I'm going to keep this A long. This is a closed syllable with a vowel in the middle, so we'll keep the short sound. So the next vowel to consider is switching from a long E to a short E. But I noticed this E is followed by an R, and E and R together usually say So let's switch to Character. Oh, that's like the root here, character. Characteristics. Oh, I recognize that. Right here, I recognize the root class in it. But let's say you didn't recognize that. You still can use the rule split between a double consonant here, after a vowel before a single consonant here, here, and here. Right here, you could also use the rule to divide before a suffix, because here we have the suffix shun. These 3 syllables end in vowels, so we will try the vowel's long sounds first. This one has a vowel in the middle, so we will try the short sound. Classifications. Well, I don't recognize that, so let's start by switching this long I to a short I. Classifications. That sounds closer to something, so let's switch this long I to a short I. classifications. Oh, I recognize that. Here's another long word. Let's start by noting the suffix -ity right here. Ity is technically 2 syllables, but it's 1 suffix, so I kept it together and marked it in a different color. We want to divide between 2 consonants here, after a vowel before a single consonant here, between 2 consonants here, and right here we have 2 vowels in a row that do not make 1 sound. When we have an I before another vowel, we usually split after the I before the other vowel, so we will do that here. And like I said, we have the suffix -ity, so we split here. One other thing to note is that T and I, as part of a suffix, have the sound of sh. You can see my video about Latin suffixes to learn more about that. Check the video's description for a link. Confidentiality. Well, that doesn't sound right, so let's switch this long I to a short I. Confidentiality. That's close, but one thing you need to note is that when we divide between an I and another vowel, the I usually has a long E sound. So let's switch from a long I to a long E here, and remember that this T is going to say sh. Confidentiality. Confidentiality. There we go. Here in this word, I noticed the root confront. But let's say you didn't recognize that. We divide here after the prefix con, or if you don't recognize that as a prefix, you have 3 consonants in a row, and I can think of more words that start or end with FR than NF. So the F and the R are a blend that we will keep together. So we will split here. Divide between 2 consonants here, before the suffix shun here, and before the suffix ul here. Confrontational. That sounds very close. I would like to point out that this O will schwa and take on a muffled short U sound. And AL as a suffix sounds more like ul rather than a clear AL sound. Confrontational. Confrontational. Here we have the prefix con again, or if you notice all 3 consonants in a row, we would keep the G and R together and split here. Then we want to divide after a vowel before a single consonant here, here, and here. Here, you could also use the rule divide before a suffix. Congratulations. Well, I don't recognize that, so let's switch this long A to a short A. Congratulations. Here we have a long word with the root differ. So I'm going to split differ off from the rest of it because it looks like this will be differ plus a bunch of suffixes. Then I will divide between the doubled consonant here. So here we have our root and it's split. Now let's look at all the rest that appears to be suffixes. Here we will split between the 2 consonants, divide after an I before a vowel other than an E, and before the suffix shun. Differentiation. Differentiation. Did you remember the TI having the sh sound in a suffix? Here's another long word. Right away, I notice the prefix dis. So let's put that by itself. I also notice the suffix ments. So let's put that by itself. Now we're only left here with this part in the middle. So I was split between the double consonant. Disappointments. Did you remember that OI says oi? Disappointments. That sounds very close to a word. Let's figure out why it doesn't sound exactly right. Let's ignore this prefix here. Here we have the root appoint. Most English words that are 2 syllables or more that start with an A rather than having a clear short A sound of a or a clear long A sound usually have a muffled schwa sound of So rather than using a short A sound, let's try the schwad sound and see if it works. Disappointments. There we go. Okay, here's a long word. Right away, I noticed the prefix die and the suffix shun. So let's split those off. Right here, I have 2 consonants, so let's split between them after a vowel before a single consonant here and here. Diversification. That doesn't sound quite right. This is the prefix die, so we will keep the long sound. So the next syllable to check would be this I. Let's change it from a long I to a short I. Diversification. That still isn't a word, so let's switch this to a short I. Diversification. There we go. Here's another long word. One thing I notice is I see the word magnetic in it. So we could split here, divide after a consonant before a single vowel. Here we have 3 vowels. The T and the R are the blend, so they stay together. And we will split here before our word magnetic. If you didn't recognize magnetic, that's okay. You divide between the 2 consonants here. And here we have the suffix ic. So we split here. English words do not usually end in the letter C unless they have the suffix ic. Electromagnetic. Electromagnetic. Let's look at this long word. I see the prefix im, or if you have 3 consonants together, P and L occur together at the beginning of many words, so keep them together and split here. Ooh, here I see the suffix shuns, so let's split there. After a vowel before a single consonant and between 2 consonants. Implementations. That sounds very close to a word, but not quite right. So let's look at our open syllables and change from long vowels to short vowels one at a time. Let's switch this long E to a short E. Implementations. Now looking at this word right away, I can see the root change in the middle. So let's put that by itself. And in front of that, I see the prefix inter. If you didn't recognize that, you would split right here between the 2 consonants, inter. This prefix is 2 syllables, but it's 1 prefix, so I put it in a different color. And this suffix is 2 syllables, but I kept it together in a different color. This suffix is pronounced able or ibble, depending on the word. By itself, this suffix is the word able with a clear long A sound. But suffixes in English are rarely accented, and they tend to have vowel sound schwa. So this A will take on a short U or a short I sound. So we have interchangeable. Let's look at our next word. Again, I see the prefix inter. So we divide between 2 consonants right here and split here after the prefix. Now I see the suffix shuns, so let's split there. So now we're just left with this part in the middle. Let's divide after the vowel before the single consonant. Interpretations. That almost sounds like a word, so let's change this long E to a short E. Interpretations. Here's a long word. Let's split between the 2 consonants here. After a vowel before a single consonant, E and U stay together, so we will divide after the U and after a vowel before a single consonant here. P and H together say f, and E and U together have the long U sound. So pharmaceuticals. Note this A schwas. That almost sounds like a word, so let's switch this long A to a short A. Pharmaceuticals. That sounds closer, but still not quite right. We tried the long sound, then we tried the short sound. This part sounds correct, so let's keep it the same. So if you tried the long sound and the short sound for a syllable and neither sounds quite right, what do? Try schwaing it. Pharmaceuticals. Notice the A takes on the muffled schwa sound of or I. Here's the prefix pro, so put it by itself. Here's the suffix ism. It's 2 syllables, but I'm keeping it together. So let's look at this part in the middle. I see a double consonant, so we will split there. Oh, that also gives us the suffix shun. And here's another suffix al. Professionalism. Professionalism. Remember that the suffix al schwas. Okay, here's a long one. Let's start at the end. That might be easier. Here's the suffix li. Here's the suffix cal. Let's look at all this together. P and S together have the sound of s because the P is silent. Here we're going to divide after a vowel before a single consonant. I know C and H together are 2 consonants, but it has 1 sound, so we will treat it like 1 consonant. So divide here. After a vowel before a single consonant, here and here. Like I said, this P will be silent. Psychologically. That sounds like a mess. Let's fix this from the end. Here we know we have li. here we have the suffix al, which we know schwas to ul. So cully. Ooh, right here, I noticed this looks like the word logic. So let's change this long I to a short I. Logically. Oh, that makes sense. That's actually a word, logically. Now, what can we do with this? Well, we tried the ch sound, which is most common for English words. The second most common sound is the k sound in Greek words. And the PS at the beginning of a word also happens in Greek words. So let's switch this CH to the k sound. Psychologically. That sounds very close. Let's switch this long O to a short O. Psychologically. That sounds even closer. We tried the long sound. We tried the short sound. Now let's try schwang it. Psychologically. That's the word. If you found this useful, please share it on Facebook, X, or WhatsApp.